Hi, good to have you guys back from your lunch breaks if you just came in from lunch. So our next workshop, which is My Career in Data, from beginner to lifelong learning, will be a great introduction to this tech area. And we have with us Quinn Pham, Director of Client Services, Meiro and Volunteer Instructor at She Loves Data. So what she's going to do is to share her inspiring journey from an accounting graduate with minimal knowledge in data all the way to how she got to become a data analytics, to be part of the data analytics team at Meiro, and now an instructor for She Loves Data. So she's going to talk about the many different opportunities available for you out there, and especially if you're a lady in this sector, she's going to give you that confidence to jump into tech based on her own experience. So I'm just going to hand over the time to Quinn and join the session.
All right. Thank you so much, Amos, and thank you for actually inviting me into this session. Hi, everyone. As Amos has already kindly introduced, my name is Queen, and it is really my honor today to be sharing my experience and my journey with you. I'm sure it is not a unique journey from somebody who's outside of data field into the data field itself. I'm sure it's not a unique experience, but I hope that with some of the experience and more importantly, the lesson that I've learned throughout those experience, I could really, give you a little bit of a boost of motivation or insight into this industry if you are considering a career in data itself. So a little bit more about myself. I am currently working with a startup that's based in Europe, but with a very strong local analyst team, and that is Meiro Customer Data Platform. At Meiro, we are managing and helping our client to manage their customer data and to build a single consumer view to manage the entire full spectrum of customer experience across different channels. So naturally, we work with a lot of different types of data, from structured databases to streaming data, social listening and things like that. And that is something that maybe 3-4 years ago, I would have never imagined I would have the capacity to work on and to talk about with eloquence, right? So my role is to manage data integration project as well as consulting our clients on customer data platform implementation together with my team. And as well, I spend my time volunteering with She Loves Data, which is a great community for data beginners. And we would love to share with you a little bit more towards the end of this session. So for this session, I was actually approached by SG Innovate and my colleague in She Loves Data to share about my career from being an accounting graduate. And my first thought was, why would that be of interest for anyone? Why would you want to hear about that? But when I got the context about what this entire day event is about, I think that was really clear for me that this is about beginners to the industry who really would just like to get a little bit of insight into what they need to know, what they, what are some of the ways that they can crack themselves into the industry. And I thought that, hey, for me, I've been through that journey and I would love to get more people into the industry, because when we work with my team with a data project, what is becoming very clear for me is that we don't have enough people who have a comfort level to work with data and make decisions out of data. We don't have enough professionals in the industry. We need to expand the industry a lot more. It's not just an industry that's only open to software engineers, data scientists, but it has to be a lot more diverse than that, because decision making requires different perspective. And while data is universal, the way that you work with data and the way that you get insight from data will really depend on your previous exposure. So I would love to see more diversity in the industry, which is why I'm here today to share with you about my experience, about joining the industry and navigating my career. By the way, I'm already seeing some questions coming in the Q&A. So thank you so much for the questions. I'll see how we can answer throughout the session, and as well towards the end, we have about 10-15 minutes for Q&A. So keep those questions coming. Okay. First of all, just data and deep tech. I understand that the event today is really about deep tech, and I've been listening here and there in the beginning. So we have been talking about a lot of different technology, which is super cool, and there's still a lot for me to learn. So where does data come in? I guess by now, I presume that I do not need to persuade you that data is everywhere, right? So we cannot throw a brick without hitting somebody who is talking about, data or digital machine learning, deep learning, and AI, and so on. However, the understanding that data is really the workhorse that is behind the economy is really important, because we hear a lot of misconception that everything has to be AI, predictive analytics. However, just for me, my experience is that all roles and functions require a good command of data and analytics, and it can be as simple as a very simple analysis, but if it brings value to decision making, then it is valuable, it is important. So it doesn't have to be super fancy algorithm. This is what I saw in back in 2017, when I was hearing all these terms a lot, and I was wondering, is my job at risk? Is that something that I really needed to learn? And for me, I just started with a curiosity. What does all of these terms mean? From deep learning, data, predictive analytics. So I just started to read up more, and that's how I really started learning about this field and ended up in a career in data. So let's go all the way back, and this was when we were this is the amount of data that is generated every day. So as we said before, it is overwhelming, right? And the ability to look, or rather to hear beyond the noise and to get the insight and decision from there, is something that is super crucial for people of all functions and discipline moving forward. So back in 2017, okay, let's go even more back. Okay, how did I started as an accountancy graduate from NTU? For me, when I graduated from NTU, I had an inkling that I wasn't ready to, get into the big four like my peers was doing, those who graduated from accountancy course. So I was volunteering for a while, and then I started my first job as an HR in a staffing agency. Actually, for me, that was a good opportunity to talk to people from different fields, different career, and to learn about what they do, what's important, what's the value that they get out of their career. That for me was a way to kind of sample different career options before I went into one. Okay, so I started actually in recruitment. And fast forward to a couple of years after that, in 2015, I was done with that. I knew that I wanted to do something different and learn more about the operational processes in the company. And my company was actually starting a very interesting project, which was to list our company in Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So that was my first I volunteered for that project, by the way. So that was my first taste of working with a huge amount of Excel. And every day when we had to produce some report and prepare that report to a certain format that is accepted by the sponsor for the listing agency, I always question myself, like, why am I doing these repetitive stuff so much? There has to be a better way, right? So that was my first, I guess, exposure to data. So moving forward to after our company successfully listed in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. By the way, that was a really painful process to work with so much data and so many manual processes. I was then really looking into a few blogs, research a lot about a few methodologies to automate the data processing process. And that was when I moved to I realized that, okay, I could pick up R and statistics. That was some, to be honest, even then, I didn't know that was the most, one of the most popular tool for data analysis. I really was just in the mindset of, I do not know anything about this industry, so I'm just going to pick something and start there, right? Start where I was. So I picked up a statistics course, which was taught in R. So I picked up R as well, and I really fell in love with this beautiful statistical language. I learned a little bit of visualization as well, because I realized how powerful it was to be able to represent some information in a graphical way, because that's the best and easiest way to present information. So that was still with the same company, but by now I was already jumping through quite a few different roles and seeing how from supply chain, from our HR, from our financial function, everyone had to work with data in some capacity. And the smarter you are about operating your process in a very automated way, the more time you actually save and the more accuracy you actually achieve. And that's when I really fell in love with all this statistical method and data analysis. So I continued to learn and hone my skills in R and Tableau. And that was when in 2018, this opportunity with Meiro came along, when this company was looking for their first hire in Singapore. So imagine when I was thinking of, joining a company that has never had any staff in Singapore. At the same time, um, you know, entering into an analytical role that I've never done before. There was a lot of firsts for me, and that took a lot of risk taking and courage. But I'm glad I did, because that really opened up an entire new, a new kind of career for me. And you would think this is the end of my story, but no. For me, this is the start. Getting into the door is really the start. Next, the next few years for me was, each year feels like much longer than that, because I grew so much in the role. In the first year, 2018, I started as a junior analyst in the role. So my role, because I was pretty junior in data analysis in any kind of programming languages. So what I did was more on the visualization side. So when data was already prepared and cleaned by the senior analyst, I would be doing some visualization with Power BI. Right? I did very simple querying and preparation of data in SQL, nothing complicated, because I was still learning. But with my boss, we discovered that one thing that I was pretty strong at was actually communication. So, storytelling and communicating the essence of the analysis in a way that is relevant and that is very helpful for the business to understand. So that's where I started as a business analyst, helping the analysts to actually package their output of the analysis into some report that the clients can look at. And here, if you switch back to the slide, I'm not sure if the slide is showing. Yes, it is. So here, if you can see on the very top of the screen, that was me in the office of one of our client, where I was actually showing them the output of my Power BI visualization. And it was really scary actually to show the client and to get questions, and you need to know the data really, really well. And sometimes the clients were actually asking about their own data to you. So I needed to be really clear about what I was presenting and what assumption was made of the data. But that was really good training ground, right? And in the bottom, what you can see as well are some pictures from when I was volunteering for She Loves Data. So when I approached She Loves Data, around the same time I started my new job, they actually put me into sharing my experience, as well as doing some small training to the ladies. And again, my first thought was like, I just learned SQL 3 months ago. Are you sure I can do this? Are you sure you want me to put up these slides and stand in front of all these ladies and teach them? And the organizer from Shiloh's Data said one thing to me that I would never forget. And she said that, well, you are 3 months ahead of these ladies then. So, you can absolutely do this. And people come here to share knowledge, not to judge how much you really know. And that really brings me the point that it's really about finding your community and sharing your knowledge. And from this Sheila's Data community, I also found a lot of like-minded people that we, over time, it's not about me being instructor, but we actually became peers, and they actually share with me about their industry, especially in marketing, which is an area that I need to be good at, but I'm not an expert in right now. So, we became learning peers as well. And that was what was so powerful about taking the attitude that lifelong learning is necessary, right? So that was in 2018. In 1 year, I was doing a lot of presentation of business insights, and also we did a few short courses for Sheila's Data. Fast forward to 2019, I was at this point promoted to lead some of the very big data integration projects for Meiro as a project manager. So this brings me to even more demand from my skills, because now I no longer just need to be able to understand the statistical analysis that we did for the client and the process of data preparation. I also needed to be able to put ourselves into the shoes of the client to help them make decisions, because while we work with clients' data, we have the responsibility to help our client, to help them interpret and make decision out of that data. So that is a really tall order, and that is something that I just had to learn on the job. At the same time, our company really went deep into the marketing technology and advertising technology field. So I started to acquire a lot of domain knowledge in there as well. And at the same time, my role in Sheila's Data even grew deeper, and I started running the entire signature Sheila's Data workshop, which is a one-day workshop that covers the foundation of data theory in the morning, together with an SQL kind of quick workshop, and then in the afternoon is visualization. So to be very honest, there were sessions where just 1 or 2 days before the workshop, I was even still researching certain things and trying to learn more and get more example about some concepts so that I can explain it in a way that is really easy to understand. So I really have to say that teaching or putting yourself in a position where you have to explain to someone is actually the best way to learn how to do it. It really helps you to clarify your understanding. So for me, it's one tip for how to learn this concept fast as well. So that was 2019. Now 2020, we all knew what happened, right? What's funny is that in 2020, while a lot of the businesses are trying to figure out, what's next, how they need to change their business model. For us, it became such a busy year because everyone was trying to move into digital transformation. So digital transformation overnight became not even optional for a lot of companies. So we had a lot of demand on our consultancy to not only help companies and processes to move digitally, but to set up the system such that data collection and data quality is set up properly, especially when we do it within such a short time. So in our projects, this is what we do, but also this is what I really learned on the job. I had no experience, but I really learned on the job as well, which was to help clients think through how do we manage and capture data, how do we look at the entire distribution, marketing, sales strategy, and set up platforms and systems so that we can collect this information and give a one single view of the operation. So this is where, for the first time, I was working with C-level executive, really to think their data-driven strategy. here it is me with my team who's in Singapore, but I also have a team in Europe, and we learn how to really work very efficiently through virtually, right? And that's where communication is also very important. So um, we are still going in this journey, and I'm still learning about all these different skills every day. Even right now, I'm rehashing on my R skill as well as basic data foundation. So throughout this journey, I think if I could summarize it into just a couple of lessons that I hope for you to take away, that would be, first of all, in terms of getting the job, I have even here a lot of questions around, how do I get into data science? How do I actually start with learning? I would say there is no, it's very hard to find a definitive journey that is, if you follow it, for sure you would get into a specific destination, because the field is always growing. New techniques, new languages, new packages are always coming up in the industry. So for a beginner, I would say it is really important to just follow your curiosity. I just started with with a statistical course, because that I was curious, and one thing led to another. So when you are curious, when you have the motivation to learn, you can learn really fast. So just follow your curiosity. Second thing, what I already mentioned, teaching is really the best way to learn. So if you are familiar with this quote from, I believe, Albert Einstein, that says, if you can't explain it simply enough, then you don't understand it very well. And it is really true. So having learning partner, a peer, with whom you can try to explain the concepts for them, is extremely useful and helpful in solidifying your knowledge and understanding about anything, not just data, but really any technical concepts. Okay. Next thing is really about asking for what you want, because many people, when we were hiring, many people came to me and say that, well, I don't have this, I don't have 3 years of experience, I don't have a degree in, in computing, computer science. This is why I am very mindful to tell people that you just ask for what you want. If when I started the role, or when I applied for this position, I was very sure that I was not so competent for the role, because I had very little formal education. But I wrote a very heartfelt letter, a cover letter to the company, to explain, this is what I'm learning, this is the skills and knowledge that I have right now, and what I'm still learning at the moment. But on top of that, these are also the skill set that I have. For example, communication, working with uncertainty, project management skills, and ability to actually communicate difficult concept in a very simple to understand way, and that is useful for business facing, right? And with that, the company actually gave a chance to me. So I would say, don't sell yourself short by only applying for positions that you already have experience in. Don't shoebox yourself. So it's really important to just reach out and ask for what you want, be it um, an internship, or you can even offer, if there's a specific company that you are very keen on joining, try to look at, if the CEO, if the C-level are making some talk somewhere, and they are mentioning these are some of the challenges that they are facing, approach and say, what can I help you? Or here's what I can help regarding this problem that you mentioned, right? So just be out there and really pursue it. And one thing that's very important for me, what I see from working with our team as well, is that it is super important to grow the domain expertise in conjunction with the technical skills. So that is why I really encourage everyone to not only focus on learning your R, your Python, your SQL, because every single courses are focusing on those things. But if you are operating in automotive field, like industry, if you are in digital analytics like myself, if you are in ed tech, if you are in marketing or supply chain, grow your domain expertise in them, in those fields as well. Because let's talk about how you grow your skill into a T shape, right? So typically, for many or for most people, they either have a very um, very strong depth of knowledge, meaning that they are actually very proficient in one functional area, right? Or they have very broad skill set, ability to actually work outside of a core area and actually collaborate with people from different departments. But moving forward, I strongly believe that the ability, the combination of both, is the only way that you would make your skill very unique and niche, right? We can find many people who have a breadth of knowledge and who is very good at assimilating different kind of knowledge. But the moment that we get very deep into, okay, how do we solve this specific problem? That's where the breadth of knowledge really reach a limitation. And then we have a lot of people who are, for example, engineers who are super, super good at what they do. They can go really deep into one technical problem. However, to the man who is only skilled in one area, they would feel very ill-equipped in facing uncertainty and facing multidisciplinary problem. So the only way to make your skill relevant and really niche is to develop a T shape, which means that developing your knowledge and experience in one deep functional area, but at the same time expanding your experience in related area. So for me, for example, what that would mean is that developing my data analytics skills so that I understand enough of the entire data analysis cycle, right? But at the same time, applying that to a wide variety of use cases, from from marketing to supply chain to D2C, direct to consumer, to various distribution channels, right? So applying into these different areas will give me kind of a very good overview of the good use cases that can be applied across different disciplines and functions, and that is something that takes time to develop. So that would be my wish for all the learners, which is to develop your T-shaped skill. Okay, so those just quickly some of my learning from you getting into a career into data. Now there's some reflection about leading a data team as well that I would like to share for people who are interested in joining the industry. And why I'm sharing this with you is because for you to understand what is the norm in a real data team. So first of all, data scientists are really, really rare. So if you're asking what is data science, essentially it's really a very broad discipline that gathers from from IT to computer engineering. A data scientist is somebody who can code really well, but who is also very good at business domain background, who's very good at the scientific method, because note the word data scientist. So essentially you're a scientist. So your background on scientific method, testing, hypothesis has to be really strong. And in general, we just don't see a lot of people like that. Usually people learn everything and then they start to specialize in something, which is okay. But I think that it's just important to understand that people tend to specialize into data engineers who more works with the raw data and prepare data and set up data pipeline, or people who tend towards the analyst and insight or machine learning engineer who works already with clean data output from the data engineer and then who work into models. So just be aware of that when you are thinking of your career steps, right? And more importantly, I think that while we need data scientists and data analysts, I think we need even more data-driven professionals. And what it means is that for every output of models or dashboard or analysis, I think that there are a dozen of people who have a hard time working with it if they are not trained on being data driven or being data aware, right? People are not so, if we are working with environment where it has always been done this way, for example, right, then it becomes very, very challenging to actually start switching into, okay, how do we work with data? Because if people are very used to working with their gut feeling, so for us, that's where my passion comes from when working in She Loves Data, and bringing more data driven or data education to all levels of experience. Okay. And finally, I think what is clear for me is that learning and upskilling is never finished. So for me personally, I actually myself am undergoing some courses always, right? So this is why I said that getting a job in data for me was really not the beginning. It was really not the finish line. It was actually the beginning. So I hope that you take that attitude with you as well when you are thinking of that career. Whew. Now, I see many questions already. So what's going to happen next is that I would just quickly go through with you because some of the questions are revolving around the, what skills are required, what do I need to learn? So what I would like to do next in the next half an hour is actually to go through with you, how do we work with data? And from each of those steps, what are the skills that is involved in there, so that you have an idea. So next time when you read any articles, you take any courses on R or Python, SQL, or some package software such as SAS, you can have an idea on how this is used in the data process. Okay. So let's look at how we work with data. And here is where we actually use this CRISP DM model, which stands for Cross-Industry Standard for Data Mining. What this is basically a framework, right? A step-by-step framework. But as you can see, it is actually iterative. It goes in circles. So you don't go just from from A to Z and never redo it. That's not the way. But this is a cycle and a framework for you to plan, organize, and execute your data mining or data analysis projects. So this is to make sure that you achieve real business values from data analysis. Why do I stress real business value? Is because if you take a bunch of data and you apply some machine learning models, some analysis, typically you would get out something, right? You would get out a model. And then my next question would be, how is it used? What kind of value is it bringing to the organization? And this is where a lot of analysts who only focuses on building their analytical skills will feel that they are challenged, because data science, data analytics is a lot more than models and statistical modeling. It's about really, starting with a business understanding in the first place, as you can see, and then going through the process of preparing the data. So essentially, it's just like cooking, right? You extract the data, so you extract all the ingredients, and then you actually assemble it and transform into something that is standardized and that can be consumed. Then you have to then load or prepare it in a way that people can consume it, and finally is to serve it to the end user. So with the same process is exactly the same for data, where we are actually extracting the data, transforming it in certain way, and embedding the organizational processes and assumption in place, and then loading it into either databases or reports or certain models that is deployed in production in order to make decisions out of it, right? So when you look at the process of data analysis, essentially you are looking at a lot of different types of analysis. This is where a lot of analysts can tell you what kind of analysis should be done, but they might not be able to really tell you why and how it brings values to the organization. So the trick is, it really depends on your problem statement. This is why I said we have to start with the business understanding, and data analysts have to learn how to define the business problem in the first place. So take these types of analysis. For example, when you look at, I'm sure that you would be familiar with, let's say, reports or some visualization. Usually 99% of the time in reports, we are looking at data that is already happened. So for example, sales trends in the last 3 months, for example. So this describes things that are that already happened, right? So that's why it's called descriptive analytics. Okay, it answers the question, what happened? Very simple, right? Secondly, the next step, when we see already what happened, we would then ask the question, why did it happen? So if I'm looking at my trend of sales, which has maybe declined in the past 3 months, I would want to cross-check it with some of the related parameters, for example, some of the related metrics, for example, number of sales channels, number of new customers generated, to see whether there is anything that might have a correlation with my sales trend. So again, here we are still forming hypothesis about why it happened, why certain metrics increase or decrease or have certain pattern, right? This is where we get into testing of the hypothesis, because when we come up with these possible reasons for why it happens, we apply, hypothesis testing and verification. That's why it's called data science, because it's really a scientific method, right? So presume that now you build a model that really gives you the understanding of why it happened. Then you can go beyond the data of the past, and then you can go into data of the future, right? So presume that by this point, you already have a model of your sales revenue as a function of number of new customers generated and number of new stores open, and your marketing budget, for example. So there are 3 variables that has an impact on your final bottom line, which is your revenue. And now we can predict the future. We can look at not just data in the past, but now what will happen if I am budgeting for this many new stores opening and this many new customers generated. What can I expect in terms of my final revenue, right? And then what's even more than sophisticated after that is when we have to do prescriptive analytics. That means defining or prescribing what has to happen in order to achieve a final outcome. So let's say now if I have a sales target, and for my organization, I know that there are 3 variables that can be combined to achieve the sales target. But because of organizational limitation, I know that I'm not going to be able to open any new stores, right? So this variable is fixed. I am not going to be able to generate any new customers. So then the only remaining variables that I can play with is the budget of my marketing budget. So that's where we can really play around with the limitation and really prescribe what are the combination of factors that allow me to achieve that end objective. So that is where I'm saying that how you frame your problem statement or how you frame your questions really has a lot of impact on what kind of analysis, what kind of data that is required. Okay. And why are we talking about this? By the way, if you attend our Intro to Data workshop, we talk a lot more about this, and when we can have more interaction with the participants, is a lot more fun. Okay? So why are we talking about this? Is because we talk about being able to make decisions with data, starting from the problem statement, and then based on there, interpreting insights from the visualization or output of your models, and then also very importantly, understanding the limitation of your data-driven approach. What can be answered with data, but more importantly, what cannot be answered with data and has to be supplemented with other methods, other even gut feel or other kind of factors, right? So then let's bring it to what are the skill set that is required for somebody to perform and thrive in data field, okay? So let's go back to the CRISP DM model. We already said a lot of starting with the business understanding. So I think why we start with business understanding is so that our problem is not defined by data, right? If you, I'm not sure if you have heard of this quote before, but there's this quote that I always remind myself, which is that if you can't measure what is important, then you will make what you can measure become important. So what it means is that you are limiting your measurement and your improvement to only what you can measure, right? So if we want to understand, let's take an example of an organization trying to understand customer churn, okay? If we define the problem as, well, I want to understand customer churn, and so let's measure just, how many customers purchase the new, purchase in the recent few months. That's something that's easily measurable, but that's hardly the only thing that leads to the customer churn, because customer experience, customer complaints in social media, these are the things that are not easily measured, but they are intuitively we know that it will have an impact on customer churn. So that's why we don't start with the data. What data do we have? But we start with what problem do we want to solve. So in this step, what you really need is definitely domain knowledge, because from there we can define what are the potentially factors that we need to look at. Problem solving and structured thinking is super important here. I know these are skills that sounds very general, but I'm talking about specific skills like, do you know how to define the problem? Some techniques like, asking the 5 whys or gap analysis, defining what is the as is process and what is to be. These are all skills that help you to define how are you going to solve a problem or answer a question with the help of data. Okay, so then also narrowing the problem statement into a question that can be answered by data, and communicating with your stakeholders. What are the limitations of that? What are the questions or what are the aspects of the question that has to be supplemented with other information? Right here, critical thinking is also important, because we need to be able to make sure that there is no bias in what we do and what we think about, right? For example, if I'm looking at the understanding customer churn, and I'm defining that, okay, I'm going to look at the customer purchasing pattern in the past 1 year to form a model, a machine learning model out of that. Naturally, I'm only measuring the customers for whom the transactions can be measured. This is customers who have purchased on my online store or website. And I'm ignoring altogether the customers who are purchasing at the supermarket or at 7-Eleven, because I don't have that data. So I'm already introducing a bias into my model. Whatever that I'm going to be able to produce in my model, it's only relevant to customers who make a purchase online, right? This is where limitation of data and bias really will influence the outcome and the usability of your model. Here, I also have the skill set of project management. And what I mean here is managing expectation for the end user on timeline and how outputs can be used. Okay, so that's, you see that in this part, this is very important skills that has nothing to do with software and code. It really has to do with being a good business person. Okay. So next step in the CRISP DM model, we start with the data understanding. This is where we start working on the data and asking yourself questions like, what data is needed, what needs to be measured, right? To start collecting, exploring, and checking the data quality. Here you might be doing some summary statistics for different types of data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, looking at some outliers. And this is where you can either build some visualization. That's a very easy and good way to immediately see what are the outliers or the general trends in your data to start orientating yourself around your data. But at the same time, this is where hard skills like Excel, R, and Python and SQL all goes into, all become really useful. You can do exploratory data analysis using any of these tools. So it depends on what you're familiar with, what you're comfortable with, and also, what is the availability of the data that you have. Notice here that I don't talk so much about the packaged softwares like SPSS, SAS, IBM, and so on, because if you work in an organization that is already using this packaged software for data analysis, then naturally you need to pick it up. But for people who are really just learning to get into into data and who want to get some, free open source tools to do, then this is your answer. Okay. All right. So what happens after data understanding is preparing your data. So in this step, we are talking about data cleansing. This is super, super important. Maybe you've already heard that data structuring and data cleansing takes up anywhere between 70 to 80% of an analyst's time. And I really have to say that it's true, because in general, when you receive a set of raw data, you should expect anything like, values being empty, default values that are not being clear. So it, so it affects your analysis, wrong values, suspicious values, and this requires you to actually do a lot of assumption about your data. This is where business understanding also comes in. So for example, if you know that for a certain product is only marketed to, let's say, people in the 25 to 30 years old range, and suddenly we are seeing some people who are saying that they are 18 years old, is this an outlier? Is this a new customer group that we need to analyze separately? Or is it just because people actually don't change when they actually declare their date of birth, they don't change the default value, so a bunch of them just have default 18 years old. So this is where understanding of your system and the reality of your business really comes in to help you make the right decision about your data. Right? This is a step where you also do a lot of blending of data from different sources. So for example, if we are doing an analysis on on the trends of certain customers, male versus female, then bringing in just naturally the ratio of male and female in the population, which is a third-party data set, will allow you to benchmark and to look at whether the whether the segregation between the number of male and female customers that you have is a naturally occurring ratio, or is it or is it really out of the normal ratio, right? So this is where you are blending different data sources as well. In Meiro, we do a lot of data integration. That means combining data from different silos and systems into an integrated group of data. And that's where you are doing a lot of R and Python. Especially, I would say Python is very good for data cleansing and structuring. And there are a lot of good packages that allows you to do it in a structured way. Okay, the next part, after we have cleaned our data, we know that there's a very good structure and well-organized set of data to work with, will be the fun part where a lot of people focus on, especially if you aspire to be a data scientist. So this is where you are using statistical method to build a model about your data. And remember previously when we talked about what will happen, which is a predictive analytics model, and what is likely to happen, which is a prescriptive analytics, right? This is where it comes in. So it sounds like the fun part, but it's definitely not possible to do well if you do not get very good at cleaning and structuring your data. Okay, so in this part, you are testing your design, you are defining the data set for training your model and then testing your model. You are deciding which algorithm to use depending on the question. Are we trying to detect certain pattern from customers and group them into similar groups, in which we would do some variants of clustering algorithm? Or are we trying to predict an outcome based on some input variables? So for example, predicting churn possibility, for which we are actually using more of predictive models, right? And together with evaluation, so this is where you are actually implementing the model, looking at the parameters, optimizing it for certain optimization parameters, and evaluating it based on the some predefined success criteria. So all of this process requires the understanding of statistical methods. So this is where you can't be a good data analyst without respect for statistical method, without understanding when is it that your model is statistically going to achieve a reliable outcome. When is it that we have a big enough group of consumers based on which we can do our analysis? Because sometimes your data set is simply too small. And even if you can build a model around that data set, it cannot be generalizable and therefore it cannot be used. So this is where a respect for statistics and statistical method is super important, right? Model building in R and Python, again, these two continues to be the workhorse of data science. And I'm sure somebody is going to ask, should I go for R or should I go for Python? And my answer ultimately is they are really neck to neck. So go with whatever you are more comfortable and you understand more. For me personally, I was not trained as an engineer. I find that Python is very the way that Python is structured is really very good for people who has a programmer mindset, who are also familiar with other programming languages. They would be able to pick up Python very quickly. And for me, I find it a little bit harder to pick up. And on the other hand, R just naturally makes sense to me, and I just love working on it. So so that's what I go for, because ultimately it's what you learn, what you can understand, and what you can do well in, right? So, and if you can learn both, do it, because each is really strong at different things. Okay, so here are in Python. And then finally, we go into deployment. And deployment here is really about, again, number one, maintenance of your model. Over time, your model is going to what we call decay. What it means is that when the input variables no longer have the same relationship with the output variables, right? Consumer tastes and preferences change over time, or reality change, right? Whichever model that was produced in 2019 immediately became irrelevant in 2020 when the pandemic actually upended every single consumer behavior trend there is. So pay attention to this and make sure that you review your model regularly. In here as well, model deployment is also about enabling the end users to utilize their model. So what it means is that how are you going to present information and deliver it in the form that the end user can understand and make decisions out of it. Don't forget that data science ultimately is about decision support. It's not about building some fancy charts, but it's about supporting decision making, right? So here's where presentation is important, domain and business knowledge is important in order to help end users actually interpret the model. And here is also when I think that it is important for critical thinking, because this is where we really have to think through the consequence of our model and make sure that there are no unintended consequences. I'll just give you an example. If you just Google a little bit about Amazon's hiring tool, this is not something that they want to talk about, but basically Amazon actually developed, I think in 2018, a model that aims to review job applicants and predict how well they are going to do or how suitable they are for Amazon, just based on the application. And they vet the applicants by observing the pattern in the resumes that were submitted to them over the past 10 years or so. And naturally, because there are more men applying for the position, it's just the reality of the industry, the model becomes more biased towards men. And what that means is that they tend to score men higher in employability or possibility to actually succeed. So naturally, even though they started out with a very good intention, because of the limitation of the data, we are introducing bias into the model. So that is where critical thinking really comes in super importantly, right? I can tell you that whatever that we learn now about building models and preparing data, in a few years, these can be optimized and done by machine learning in an even more efficient way that a person can do. But critical thinking, communication is something that AI and data science can never catch up with the ability of a person. So hold on to that and develop that skill set. Okay? Just a couple of more things that I think is really important to highlight would be hard skills that are maybe not strictly must have, but an understanding of what is there, what are, how do this system actually work with data science and data analysis and databases would be very useful. So that would be understanding of database management, big data, cloud computing, and especially DevOps as well. DevOps is basically a combination of, development, IT, quality engineering, security processes. So it's essentially, how do you deploy your model, and and how do you ensure the security access management of the output of the data. So this is also very good for you, especially if you gear towards more on engineering. Okay, but that's not all. Soft skills, like we said already, many soft skills are important. But what I have not mentioned so far, for me, it's about storytelling, right? A story is a narrative. So story offers context. So for example, remember when I actually started as a project manager, and many times in the role, we had to guide the client through the narrative of what they should or how they should think about their customers. For example, recently we had this FMCG customer who actually launched their new product, and they asked us a simple question, right? Who are our customers for this new product? Who are purchasing our new product? How can we get more of these people? And so we walk them through an entire narrative of how we start exploring and learn from the data, starting from, what are the hypotheses and assumption? Do we think that these customers are of the new product are coming from our other existing product, in which case we are actually cannibalizing ourselves? Or do we know? If we know that's not the case, then the next question is, do we see these consumers, do we know if they are coming from competitors? in which case it is good because we are not cannibalizing ourselves, but still it is not the best case scenario because we are just fighting and competing for the same market. And the best case scenario that we would like to go to is with our new product, we are able to expand the market. We are able to reach out to people who have never tried this new product, but also who have never tried equivalent product from our competitors. So we are expanding the pie, right? So that's the step-by-step narrative and the way that we thought. And all of our analysis were, step-by-step supporting those thinking process. So that's where the power of shaping the narrative really shapes how the organization thinks and make decisions. Okay, so that's why I think it's super important. What else is important is persuasion and communication. We talked about this a few times already, but essentially understanding your audience and how they receive and process information is super important. And finally, this will surprise you, but the last thing that I really think is super important is courage. Because when you work with data, you are definitely going to run into scenario where you would have to bring news that are not pleasant to people. Hey, we are not selling enough. Hey, certain departments are not performing well enough. Hey, our data quality is really not good enough. Some vendors are not doing their job. Or sometimes we might even see fraudulent transactions or patterns in the data. I have been put into that position, and it takes so much courage to come to the client who pays me to give them good news, right? To come to the client and say, hey, I think we have to make the difficult decision here. Either to redo this process, which is gonna cost money, to impact certain people who are not doing their job, but it has to be done. So courage is needed, and trust me, if you are going to work with data, you will need it. Okay, so that's a lot about all of my consolidation of my thoughts and all the skill set I think that is necessary to perform well in this industry. Where do I start? There are so many resources, and if you research on this, it's already there's so many resources available. I'm just going to share with you all of the things that really shaped my learning experience. So that's from the edX, Coursera, and the like. Especially for Coursera, they had a recent course that was in collaboration with Google on data analysis, and I think it's really good for beginners. Okay? I listen to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of blogs and newsletters. In data science, there's a very good culture of people sharing their learning and experiment. So reading these blogs also allow me to look at people's career, how they think, how they shape certain problem, how they do the analysis. Really, really powerful. And practice with public data set available, and as well important to build your own portfolio of work. So when I actually applied for my position, I shared with I was already building a few Tableau dashboards, and I actually shared with my prospective employer the link to my Tableau repository, and I think it was really helpful for them to see this is the quality of work that I could produce, right? And finally, really, like I said before, find your community of like-minded learners, because learning is forever. So find your community of people who can exchange knowledge with you, or I'll take courses together. That's going to be super powerful. Speaking of which, here's where I would really like to share with you a little bit more about She Loves Data, which is the community that really has so much impact on my learning and growing of a data professional. So we have a quick video, after which I would have my colleague from She Loves Data to share a little bit more. I know that you have some questions about how do you attend the courses. So we would go to that. Okay, but let's go to the video now.
Richa.
All right, so here I would like to introduce as well my colleague Richard Tiberawal. She is the Global Head of Operations and as well in Singapore chapter. So Risha, I would give the time to you to share with our community a little bit about Sheila's data and our courses. We have a lot of questions about, how do I attend intro to data? How do I join the community? So the time is yours.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Quinn, for the introduction and SG Innovate team for putting this event together. This video always gives me goosebumps. And to let you all know, the video has a bit of stats which are only for the offline workshops. And of course, in a due course of time, I will run through more slides which will have more updated stats. But I'm glad that we are able to share Quinn's journey with data and Sheila's data with all of you. It's super inspiring and motivating as always. So, before I begin, so let me ask you, what is volunteering? In my opinion, I think, people choose to volunteer for a variety of reasons. For some, it might just offer the chance to give something back to the community or make a difference to the people around them. But for others, it provides an opportunity to develop new skills or build on existing experience, knowledge, meet like-minded people, or build a, social network. But before I deep dive more into who She Loves Data is, what do we do, why do we do, and who is our target audience, I'm sure you all have a lot of questions. A little bit about myself. So I am Richa Tibrival, and I work as a consulting project manager in the ERP HCM space in my day job. That helps me pay my bills. But at the same time, I strongly advocate it's incredibly important to give back to the community and do our bit towards building a smart nation, smart future. And as Quinn already mentioned, I head the global operations and Singapore chapter for She Loves Data in a volunteering capacity. Without any further ado, let me introduce to all of you She Loves Data, a place where people from diverse backgrounds, varied needs, dreams, they come together, to upskill themselves. They can attend free events that primarily focuses on data, digital marketing, and networking opportunities that can help you grow and stay relevant in the industry. Although we are She Loves Data, our target audience is both women and men. Of course, he loves data too. So it's incredibly important, after all, to have male allies as well. So maybe, we can run through the slides now and I can share more content with you. Jojo, if you can help me with the slides, I can't see the slides right now. But in the interest of time, of course, we are a non-profit volunteer-run organization founded in the year 2016 right here in Singapore. So Singapore is our headquarter, top smart city in the world. So we focus on the importance of diversity, data, and digital literacy by conducting free workshops. And of course, everybody knows that last year due to pandemic, everybody kind of steered to the online world, and She Loves Data was no less. So keep posting the questions, guys. I'm sure you would have a lot of questions on how to associate with She Loves Data, how to volunteer with She Loves Data, how you can attend a lot of workshops and webinars. And we have a lot of courses coming up this year. In the interest of time, I'll keep talking, and it's absolutely fine with the deck coming up or not. But there's a dashboard specialist program, which is in collaboration with TIPCO and Singapore Management University. So we have incredibly amazing professors from Singapore Management University who are conducting this 4-week program in a span of time, and you actually get an opportunity to get certified. Thank you so much for the slides, and I'm sure you guys can see the slides now. So to continue, we do have free webinars coming up throughout the year. And our mission is primarily to inspire more and more women to pursue careers in data and tech and help them get ready for future of jobs, to build a community for local and global networks. So basically, She Loves Data is present in like 16 countries, 17 chapters. So it's not a very close-knit, more like a cocoon. You get to meet a lot of people even outside Singapore. You get opportunities to explore more job opportunities, build a like-minded network, and build a community where like-minded women like you and me can come together. We can support each other and do so many other things. So what is our reach and impact? Almost like 130 plus events that we have done in the past across all the 17 chapters, out of which 50 plus events in Singapore. And we have amazing contribution from both women and men. So we have online communities, we have newsletter that goes out every month to all the chapters across the world. And it's incredibly amazing to be associated with this women network here. You can always check our website for latest and upcoming events. And what kind of workshops do? We do as Quinn mentioned already about the signature data workshops. So we do have signature workshops that are also coming up very soon. And at the moment, we are doing a digital marketing series. So maybe towards the end of my talk, I'll let you know how you can actually register for this free webinar that's coming up right next week on 15th April. Apart from that, we do have a lot of panel discussions happening, meetups which are online, so you can network with more like-minded people around. There are few soft skill workshops also that we do around critical thinking, or maybe about data storytelling, your personal storytelling. So if you get 1 minute or 2 minutes to talk about yourself in an interview, and let's not just talk about your formal interview setup, but say for example you are at a networking event and you just have that 1 or 2 minutes to actually put your pitch forward, what kind of storytelling you should talk. These are the different kind of soft skills webinars that we also do. And apart from that, we have dashboarding skills related certification programs where people can register and you get to actually certify with TIPCO and SMU in association with She Loves Data. So we have, I think, dashboard program coming up in June or July. You can keep a watch on our website and you can just follow the link, register yourself. You can follow us on all social media channels because we keep posting about the promotions of different events that are upcoming. Apart from that, so what's our mission and vision, right? We definitely want to widen our impact, and what more can be better than we have a powerful community like you guys. So we definitely want to upskill and more and more women train more and more men and women across globe. So 30 chapters is our goal across 2023, which is not too far, but we are very much there. So do follow us and tag us everywhere on social media. You can scan this barcode from your phone, go to your camera, open it. It will just like you are doing right now, all these pandemic related scans, right? Just open your camera, scan it. It will take you to a browser and it will land directly on our website page. You can navigate to the events tab, wherein you will actually have an opportunity to see and update yourself with all the upcoming events. You can also see on the slide there is a link in the bottom which is specifically for the 15th April workshop. And surprisingly, Quinn, our in-house instructor, is also the speaker for this absolutely free digital marketing series that we are starting from 15th April. And there's a lot more coming up in future as well. Apart from that, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask after this. But just to close it, I would just like to say, dedicating my time as a volunteer at She Loves Data, it helps me meet like-minded, passionate people, also expand my network and boost my social skills. So do reach out to us. You can drop a note on support_sg@shelovesdata.com, or you can look for me on LinkedIn, or you can even check out our website, www.shelovesdata.com, and we would be more than happy to connect with you and see how we can help you. So over to you, Jojo, after this. We can probably open up the questions and Quinn and I can help answer the relevant questions going forward. Quinn, I think we can't hear you. You are muted.
You hear me well, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, so that always happens, right? It has to happen once. If not, it's not a webinar. We run a lot of webinars, so we are, we are used to this. So let's open up the questions. I'm already seeing quite a few questions here, and maybe Risha, I'll just start with the She Loves Data one. Because we have some participants here asking, is She Loves Data workshop open to anyone in the public? So I presume this is related to, what we mentioned about She Loves Data. Some workshops are for our female community. And also the second question being that why do we have always workshop that is on the weekday? And are we planning for some workshop on the weekend? So over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Quinn. And thank you so much for that question. Okay, so I know it is She Loves Data, but of course, He Loves Data too. So majority of our workshops is open to everybody. So don't be disheartened. If at all there is a one-person workshop which is exclusively for women, for example, we might be doing a panel talk which is for future female leaders, etc. Then of course we would make sure that our promotional posts are indicated enough. So you should not be able to kind of get confused or get lost there. 90% of our workshops are for everybody, so don't be disappointed there. Coming to the weekday versus weekend, we actually keep conducting a lot of surveys within the community to understand and gauge the mindset of people, when are they available, what time of the day works for them, or what day of the week works for them. So in the past, I think with pandemic around, a lot of people were homebound and they were comfortable to drop in for the lunch hours. But thank you for the feedback. We would definitely try to come up with more webinars on a weekend. Over to you, Quinn.
Thank you so much, Risha. So again, like you said, I think we are so passionate about our community and to share our workshop and to bring even more people into the community. So, we are always working on making more workshops available and, improving, revising our content so that it is kept updated with the most recent development of the field. So thank you so much again, Visha, for being here and sharing with the community. Now I will go into just a couple more questions. I think we just have a bit of time left, so just a couple more questions. In general about what we mentioned before. For Edward, who asked me, does creating an online portfolio give us an edge? I would say that, obviously having it is better than none. And I'll share with you, it's not only about showing something, it's not only about showing to your prospective employers, but it's a good way for you to document your learning process. For me personally, even doesn't have to be an online portfolio, but if you have a learning journal where you are writing down, on a daily basis or weekly basis, what you learned, what you discovered, any new techniques, that is really helpful for you to look at your growth over time. When it comes to online portfolio, for example, on GitHub where you are sharing your codes, I think it is besides it being your repository of your work and your learning journey for a new employer or prospective employer, between two applicants who is really neck and neck, I would really kind of prefer a little bit somebody who has an online portfolio, because what it tells me is that this person takes the time to build some personal project on his own time and is not just working on something because of work. Now, just to set context for us, we are, by the way, we are hiring for data analysts and project managers who has exposure to data as well. So, just in case you're looking for something, approach me. So when we are hiring, what we do is, besides looking at the portfolio, we also give a small test, standardized test for all of the analysts, just to see how you approach the problem, how you think about the problem, how clean you write your code. So everything that we talked about earlier, right? So that's for us, an additional layer of really understanding how somebody works. So I would say an online portfolio, yes, that would give you an edge. It's not the only, criteria, of course, but it definitely will give you an edge in the hiring process. I have two questions here that is kind of opposite but related. So one question is, how can a mid-career person, PMAT from not so much tech expertise, start becoming a part of the team working with data and analysis? And then I have a question about, how can a fresh graduate from a non-IT background but with some skills in data analytics join a career in data science? I would say this, and if you want to approach me after this with a more specific question about where you are with your skill set and what you do and what kind of specific experience you have and what is the next logical sense, I would be happy to figure it out with you, right? But for the general audience, I would say this. First of all, what I hear from you is that, it sounds like IT background is what's holding you back, what makes you feel that because you don't have an IT background, it doesn't, it's more difficult, or it doesn't qualify you for the industry, for which I would say that is not true. Me being an example of that, and many other people that I've met through Shiloh's data community. So for me, it's about first of all, being very clear what you bring on the table, what kind of experience and knowledge you can bring on the table. Just like how when I first started my job search with the company, I was very clear what are the courses that I had a theoretical knowledge about because I took some courses, and what are the skills that I have a practical experience on, which is working with uncertainty, which is project management and communication and so on. So first of all, is taking stock of your current skill. Second of all, is managing and adjusting your expectation. Not having the experience of being an analyst before may mean that you need to go step by step, from like a very junior level to working on more sophisticated models, right? So that's where you can start with your career. Okay, so in the interest of time, of course, we cannot address all the questions, but I would be very happy if you have some questions. And if you approach me on LinkedIn, search for Quinn Pham on LinkedIn, and you would see me, and we can talk more in details. I'm not a career counselor, so obviously I cannot, give you specific advice, but we can figure it out together, and I can share with you what works. Okay. So is that time, Amos? Or do we have more time?
Yes, unfortunately, I think that's all the time we have for today, but I think the audience really enjoyed your sharing. Thank you, Quinn and Risha, for joining us today. And based on the interactions, the comments, and the many questions on our site, I would say the audience really loved your sharing, and many people are resonating with Quinn's story, actually. So my own favorite quote from Quinn would be that the best way to learn is to teach. So I feel that it really represents the collaborative environment that many of our startups rely and thrive on. So I hope that after hearing from our speakers, our audience, you feel more confident and empowered to begin your journey in data. So next up, we have our last workshop. It's connecting mindsets, design thinking, lean and agile, happening at 3 p.m. So that's happening really soon. And in the meantime, our Engage and Win challenge is coming to an end shortly as well in 30 minutes. So don't miss out this chance to win your dream staycation. So there are many exciting prizes, and some of our exhibitors are in the exhibitor hall. Really looking forward to meet you. So do drop by, say hi, find out about the different innovative technologies they're driving, and get to know them better. So I'll see you soon at 3 p.m. for our next workshop. And that's it for now.